The Doug Wright Show. Doug scores big-time interviews on Utah's most important stories on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to our gubernatorial debate. Our Democratic candidates are here with us. We appreciate Mike Weinholz, also Vaughn Cook, joining us today. We also, again, want to thank a very important group, the Utah Women's Democratic Club, the oldest continuous women's Democratic club west of the Mississippi, for facilitating this today, and also thanks to the League of Women Voters who are keeping time during the debate. This time, this question will go first to Vaughn Cook. And again, these questions come primarily from those who text in and they emailed us with their concerns and their comments. And this is one that we had 3 or 4 that were very, very similar. We've melded them together as well. Utah has serious issues with dirty air. It affects the health of Utahns and the reputation of our state. What specific steps would you take as governor to clean up our air and clean up the energy that we produce in our state? Mr. Cook.
I'll need 10 minutes, Doug, if that's okay.
No problem.
I believe that the clean air issue is very much like the seatbelt issue. We got people to wear seatbelts because we made it the law, but we really got them to wear their seatbelts because we educated them. We let people know in this state that the smart thing to do is to buckle up. I don't know of anybody in this state who breathes our dirty air who wouldn't do something to clean it up if they knew what to do. So I think that the first thing is to create some legislation. Let me give you an idea of what we could do. Builders build homes today to codes that were developed in 2006. Building materials and building styles have changed over the last several years, but our building codes have not improved. We could improve those codes and we would get new construction that would be more ecologically responsible. That's one legislation. Education is a huge piece of this, too.
Let's go to Mr. Weinholz now.
Well, the first thing we have to do is get serious about this issue, because I believe the governor and the legislature has not been serious. Anytime you hear a politician talking about the need to clean up the air, they always have a qualifier that says, well, we need to clean up our air, but we can't do it at the expense of jobs. And I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. In fact, if we begin to move towards next generation energy sources, it'll create thousands of jobs for Utahns, particularly in central Utah, where they're suffering from market changes in the coal industry. So the first thing we have to do is get serious. We have to have big, bold solutions. All we do currently is nibble at the edges, and that shows that we are not serious about it.
Let's go back to Mr. Cook.
The cost of this dirty air is really a chronic problem because we're keeping people sick, we're making people sick. Those problems won't show up for years to come. The other part of this is how do we clean up the energy in the state? And I think a classic example of things that we could do better is sending $53 million to California to build a port when we could have taken that same money and invested in our higher education institutions and asked them to develop a way to burn coal clean. If we could develop that technology, we would export that across the world and we would solve a problem that the world has, not just Utah.
And back to you if you choose, Mr. Weinholz.
Well, the other issue that dirty air creates is a problem for economic development, because people come here in the winter during ski season, they get off the plane in the inversion, and when they go back, they tell their friends how dirty the air in Utah is. So this is a problem for economic development as well. When there's an article in the New York Times, which is read around the world, about the poor air quality that we have, it makes it very difficult for us to recruit workers to the state and the right kind of businesses with high-paying jobs to the state as well.
We had quite a few questions come in regarding the situation of environmental issues in the state of Utah. This one also came in, and again, there were many that asked about the air quality. Along with air quality, the overall supply and quality of our water are of great concern. How do we ensure that we get our fair share, we conserve, and we maintain the quality of our water, Mr. Weinholz?
Mm-hmm. Well, water is a complicated issue, but we have to start with understanding what the problem is. First of all, there's a big disconnect because we're the second driest state in the country, but we're also the second biggest consumer of water in the country. So we have to look at conservation, but we also have to understand what the problem is. We currently have a broken system of measuring what the issue is. We have broken equipment, and we have situations where our government doesn't even know what the issue is. For example, there was a study done a couple years ago, and it included data on Syracuse, New York, instead of Syracuse, Utah. So we need to get serious. We need to have solutions, and we need to hold the governor and our legislators accountable for their lack of action so far.
Mr. Cook.
When we look at ecological issues in this state, we really need to look at them with a 150-year perspective. The decisions we make today are going to impact our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren, and we don't want to screw it up for them. We're constrained by the fact that we live in a desert. That's just a fact. We also anticipate that the population in the state is going to continue to grow, but it can't continue to grow if we don't have enough water to drink. And we need to make plans today to do that in a way that will not screw up the economy, or not the ecology for our great-great-grandchildren. One of the ways to do that, and the place to start, is conservation. Instead of developing new water projects and diverting water from one place to another, let's take the water that we already have and let's use it more efficiently. Let's not just use water to water lawns. That's a terribly inefficient thing to do, terribly wasteful.
Mr. Weinholz.
A couple other solutions that we could do to encourage conservation would be to introduce metering and introduce tiered pricing so that the people that are using the most water are actually paying for it. We also should look into modernizing our agriculture system. Our agriculture uses about 87% of our water in the state, and they're using antiquated systems that have lots of waste in the system. So there's plenty of ways that we can look at conservation as well.
And Mr. Cook.
I was talking last Saturday to a water expert in Logan who works at Utah State University, and he told me that there are farms out in the Delta area that use underground water sampling, and they regulate their irrigation accordingly. And he said it's had a tremendous effect on the production, but it's also had a tremendous effect on the amount of water they need. Technology is something that we haven't tapped nearly enough, and that would certainly help us with our move towards better conservation.
Thank you for your responses. We are going to take a break at the top of the hour here at KSL. By the way, for those who are listening but would like to view this, you can go to kslnewsradio.com, where this is being streamed live. We'll take a break at the top of the hour for our news, and we'll be back with the Democratic gubernatorial debate.